We are looking forward our way from Studio C in the 511 studios. That's in the Brewery District just south of downtown Columbus, Ohio. Hi, this is Brett. Nationally and locally, our communities are being struck by disasters, whether they're caused by weather, fire, or natural disasters. Today, we're going to learn a bit more about emergency preparedness and how easily we can prepare. Please welcome our expert guest, Cory Paul, the Executive Director of the Greater Columbus Chapter of the American Red Cross. Cory, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We are so glad to see you. And this, the sort of the joke on the side, I always talk to our guests before they come in. And so I called Cory and I said, I have a backpack. I have a Red Cross backpack. So it's been a journey for me, and I keep giving him updates. But it's important, and it's a subject that we hear about when there's a disaster.
Wonderful.
We want to talk about the subject before there's a disaster and making sure everybody's on the right page. So thank you again for your time today and coming in to see us. Before we really discover more about the Red Cross and emergency preparedness, we want to talk about you first. So tell us your story, what you've done in your professional career, and what brought you to the Red Cross.
Wow. So first and foremost, thanks for having me. It's always it's going to be a pleasure. I know that for sure. And we'll learn a lot in this short time. I know that. So first and foremost, I'm a veteran. I served with the Ohio Army National Guard. I've been with the Red Cross for 13 years. I've traveled all over Ohio serving the Red Cross. I've held multiple roles in the humanitarian organization. I've worked in our disaster response, preparedness, and recovery. I've done some work with our veterans, service to the armed forces. And then I served as an executive director both in the Dayton area and in Columbus here. So really have grown a lot through the Red Cross. And I'll tell you, before I joined, I really didn't have much connection to it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think that this was a career choice, a career path. And so I volunteered with the Red Cross and went on my first fire as a volunteer. And I remember that just hitting me very hard and realizing that it was something special that myself and other volunteers across the country are able to do every day, is provide comfort and hope to someone who had just had their worst day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned, and I'm going to, this is a little bit of a sidebar. You mentioned you're a water baby. You love the hot weather and water. You have a little history in diving as well, correct? I did a little stalking online going, the diving really popped up and going, so talk about this diving.
Yeah, I kind of fell into it. I kind of dove into it. And
did you work hard at those puns?
Yeah, a little bit.
But just we've never talked.
Don't hold your breath.
We've never talked to a diver before.
Yeah,
this is real interesting. So you kind of go into that a little bit.
So I'm a water baby through and through. Okay. I grew up on Lake Erie. Any chance I have to get in any body of water, I'll take it, whether it's on or in, above, wherever it is, right? I, through my student loans at Ohio University, one of the requirements was a work-study program. Okay. And so I had to do 20 hours a week somewhere on campus. I started in film school, loved that, office job, sending out envelopes, that kind of stuff, right? And then took the scuba class, that is a elective class, and fell in love with it.
Oh, wow.
And the next semester or quarter at the time, I raised my hand and said, hey, do you have any openings to be in the leadership and learn the more advanced piece of diving? And the rest is history. I was able to teach students pretty much my own age in the pool. I spent 4 hours in the pool almost every week. It was wonderful. And then I got free trips all over the place to go and do diving with all these college students. It was wonderful.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It's the most peaceful thing, I'll tell you. Being underwater, just blowing bubbles. It's the most
I've heard
peaceful thing.
That it's just that the draw of the peacefulness.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
We're gonna give a shout out to a friend of Brett's and mine, to Martha Cotton, who is a diver, and she dives the Grand Caymans and does all of there's some like awards you get if you do so many dives in so many different places. So we're going to give a shout out, and I just saw her the other night, so I'll have to tell her we talked about her. Yes,
exactly.
she's I don't know if she is currently certified to teach. I think she did, but I'll have to check on that.
Anyway,
so
wonderful. Cool.
there you go.
All right. Well, back to business. Okay. So the Red Cross has a long history of serving Americans. They're now 143 years old. We've all heard the story of Clara Barton and her work to serve soldiers during the Civil War, but the Red Cross has grown to be internationally renowned for serving the military, coordinating blood donations, housing victims of disasters, and a lot more. Talk about the Red Cross and your role as the executive director in serving Central Ohio.
Well, great. You mentioned a lot of the lines of service that the Red Cross is able to do. So most people, when they think about the Red Cross, they think about either blood services, biomedical services, or disaster. And those are typically kind of the most forefront of the services we provide. You see a big disaster on the TV, and then you see the Red Cross, supporting that. You see the need for blood drives, especially in the summer months. There typically is a need for more blood in those times, and so those two lines of service take up a big chunk of the work that we do locally. So the Red Cross responds to house fires. We do that in Central Ohio and respond to at least one a day. And volunteers do most of this work. We have many blood drives a day, whether they're at fixed site locations or whether they're at that church group or civic organization. But we also serve veterans and service members about 500,000 times a year across internationally. We send emergency communications back and forth from family members to service members and the command in case there's an issue at home that requires their attention.
Oh, that's good. I had never heard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the Hero Care Network, and service members and their families should make themselves aware of that, because there are some opportunities to help themselves and to work through that veteran network. There are also CPR, first aid, AED classes all over the place most days of the week. That's our training services department. They do a lot of really great work in babysitting and some aquatics and, again, CPR, first aid.
And that babysitting class has been going on forever, because I remember that when I was a little kid. So and what a way to give a young person, girl or boy, the self-confidence to be taking care of somebody else's child.
Right, and that parent has a little bit more confidence in that person, right? So there's confidence all around about being able to respond to whatever that emergency might be, right? Then we have international services where we have programs called Restoring Family Links. We also work in the Measles and Rubella initiative internationally. And so there are small bits of volunteers and programs that do that kind of work here in Central Ohio.
When you mentioned the CPR AED training programs, we heard CPR forever. Tell us about AED. That's new.
Right. So the AED stands for Automated External Defibrillator.
Right.
And I'm so happy that I got that right the first time.
I let you say it. I didn't.
And they are lifesavers. First aid and CPR absolutely are necessary in responding to an emergency, walking into a room and seeing someone collapsed, or being at work or at school, being somewhere in public and someone having, some sort of emergency. Knowing what to do in those situations, knowing what not to do in those situations, I think are very important. The AED is that next generation, next level of support for that person who's experiencing a cardiopulmonary incident. And what that does is basically you follow the directions right on it. It tells you almost exactly what to do. You place the pads on the body where it tells you to place them. And again, it tells you exactly what to do, and it basically would shock your heart back into rhythm. And so that plus CPR is the way to go. So next time you're in a building, a public space, next time you're at work, look for where that AED might be.
Well, and this is what I love about doing our podcast. We don't know who's going to be listening to it. And it's important that an individual who may need CPR is one thing, but maybe it's an employer who wants an AED training in their location and they need to buy an AED piece of equipment, which they can do through the Red Cross.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Both the training and the products are available at redcross.org.
Right. Okay. I'm beleaguering and belaboring my incredible Red Cross backpack, emergency backpack. Brett thinks I'm crazy. But when Cory and I spoke on the phone, I mentioned this whole notion of emergency preparedness really hit close to home for me because a tornado hit 2 miles from my house. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I need more than just water in my basement. Thank God I have a basement, but I do need more than water. It was not confusing to figure out what you need. It's really laid out on your website. A lot of websites have all that, but it's a lot of stuff. So I was really excited when I saw, Red Cross has done that work for me. I can just buy it and it's all together. But the one thing that I think people are not informed as to what they can expect from the Red Cross and other organizations in a disaster, and what they really need to take responsibility for themselves ahead of time, to really protect themselves and their home and their own family. So tell us a little bit about what exactly you're doing. How do you mobilize your team of volunteers to deal with this, and what we really need to think about for ourselves?
Well, great. So disasters are very complex, whether they are a simple single-family house fire where it really is affecting maybe one or two families. The neighborhood is aware. The street maybe is abuzz, and may help that family or individual in multiple ways. But they're very complicated when it comes to disasters. The kind of floods, tornadoes, wildfires that are happening across the country. We're just at the start of hurricane season, so we're going to see some more tropical storms. We're going to see some more hurricanes. All of those things disrupt normal life, right? And when you think about the Red Cross response, when you think about the fire department's response, when you think about the police, medical, really everything that could be disrupted really has to pull together. And so we work really very closely with our emergency management agencies, both at the county level, at the state level, at the federal level, to help coordinate those kind of responses. There are some things that the Red Cross does. There are some things that the Red Cross doesn't do. There are some things like like the Salvation Army, or again, your local fire department. So there are kind of places for each one of these agencies to support the community. The way that we mobilize more often than not is through a call from our partners in the fire department or through the emergency management agency. We also have volunteers that watch the news. We also have I've also gotten calls from news people saying, "Hey, we're at a fire. Are you aware?" Oh, great. Yeah, we'll send out a team, right? So it takes a community to kind of mobilize a lot of these organizations, including our own. First thing we do is stage our volunteers. So in the heat at the moment, or if we know the rivers are rising, or if we know storms are going to be here tonight or tomorrow, we stage our volunteers. They're ready and waiting to go. They have a phone call into them. They have their vest on. They're just waiting for that call. Our vehicles are gassed up. We have trailers that are filled with cots and blankets and things that you would need to set up an emergency shelter. We're in constant communication with our partners around what's coming and where do we need to be when. And so those are kind of the planning pieces. And then the disaster strikes. And a lot of those plans may sometimes end up going out of the window because it's a different response or a different need. And so being flexible, we say semper gumby, always flexible. And yeah, so
I like that.
you may have to deploy or respond to this area, but oh wait, there's another area across the map that is a little bit more affected or has more vulnerable population. So you really have to make those decisions, game time decisions at that moment. But we can't do it alone. And I think that's the biggest point is through our work with community partners, through our preparedness, sitting down with these folks, these leaders in the community, well before a disaster occurs is the only right move.
Okay.
I don't want to meet you day zero.
Yeah.
Right. We shouldn't be exchanging business cards at the fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so having those kind of pillars, that kind of fundamentals of preparedness and response has served us well for many, many years.
Yeah. So we've all seen the lists of what we should have on hand in case of an emergency. And I think even Carol may have talked to me about this. Like, I was going to put something together, but then I run across this great thing from Red Cross, and I got the package and that kind of stuff.
It was
and it's
daunting to see the list.
So, but some people love to put things together. I mean, it is kind of fun to be prepared. I mean, it is. I mean, you're prepared. Let's put it that way. So, could you give us some tips and strategies to not only get the items together, but also make it an easy task? It is kind of hard to think about. Okay, how many days stuff should I have, and that's how much water I drink over 3 days.
Right.
You're just thinking of the water and the food, and you have pets and all these other things. You don't think about this, what may not be available.
Right. So I'll tell you quickly is the first thing that I hear from a lot of folks, whether it's in an emergency shelter or whether it's at the really anywhere people get together after a disaster, when I'm talking to folks who had experienced it, the first thing that they say to me, or commonly that they say, is, I never thought this was going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Sure.
And that's okay. But with this discussion, I think it's very important. Most people think of it, and Carol, you said it before, most people think of getting a kit the day after the disaster, right? And that's okay too. Whatever can kind of motivate you for the next one, I think is very important. I think the daunting piece of this is that no one person's kit or no one family's kit is the same, right? You have a different dynamic in the family, household unit. You have different needs as an individual.
My sister and brother-in-law call it the Armageddon kit.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
They have, that they have. It's always in the truck, ready to go. I don't know what exists in it, but that's what they've nicknamed it. So to their point, either you nickname it differently or whatever you pack in it, that's what they think is necessary.
Right. And you have these shows about doomsday preppers and, people going real out there.
Real out there. I don't know if it's that to that point, but they had to name it something.
Right, right. Well, I'll tell you, I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think of the things that you need right now, today, to sustain life just at a normal balance, right? And this, it is... every day is different, right? You need your umbrella one day, and those kind of things. What I tend to tell people is to start small and to think of 3 days worth of preparedness. What within these next 3 days are you going to go through? I think about water first and foremost. So 3 days worth of water, a gallon per day per person, and it could be a lot of water.
I got a lot of water. Brett, you can come to my house.
Yeah, there you go.
Your house is going to be gone, though. We won't be able to find it. And you're going to be gone because you've got physical maps that you're just
I can get out of
you're
town.
out of here. We will never find you.
Well, I keep saying I live between Alum Creek, the dam, and Hoover Reservoir. if either one of those goes, my house will be gone. I mean, it's just there's water everywhere.
Well, and I think you're bringing up a good point. Is even your geographic location will make certain determinations on your preparedness kit, right? When I do trainings or when I teach classes, I talk about train derailments or other kind of maybe human-caused situations, or a dam breaking or those kind of things where it's big enough to where it might separate you from family members, or you're at work, kids are at school, train tracks are between you. What do you do if the unthinkable happens? And how do you communicate to one another? And where is that place outside of the general area that you may meet, right? All those things are things to think about because they've happened to people, in the past, right? Back to the preparedness kit. I think, we're poking fun at you, Carol, but the seriousness at which you take what you have, even though it's fun, I think that however you address the need for what you need in your preparedness kit, whether you buy a full kit and you keep it where you need to, or you start small and you shop one item of your kit every time you go to the grocery.
An extra container of Band-Aids.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it becomes a little bit more manageable. You could make it a game, right? You could invite a friend over or get the family together and say, okay, what do we need if the lights are off, the heat, the water's off, the lights are off. We need to stay here for 3 more days, by order, of whomever. What do we do? Right? What do we have now, and how can we get that all together? And what we'd need to procure, and that's a great list. But like I tell people, every time you go to the grocery, pick up that one first aid kit, or pick up an extra batteries, or pick up an extra pair of reading glasses, or another pair of socks. All of those things that are on that list. Start small. Have somewhere where you can put that, a Rubbermaid container or some kind of waterproof container, and that's the place where your preparedness stuff goes. And with that one extra thing a week, or 1 or 2 things in the week, you are more exponentially prepared every day.
This is something that should have hit me a long time ago. When I was in college, I was in a dorm fire. And I don't remember the Red Cross being there, but it could have been. And I just, who knows. But luckily it was during the day, because the fire department guys told us that if it had been at night, they would have been dragging bodies out, which was really not what we wanted to hear. But so I've been through that. When I first moved to Delaware County, with all of the people moving up there, they had not really created a good infrastructure on electricity. I can't even tell you how many times I lost electricity and lost everything in my fridge and freezer several times before they finally built that infrastructure. So, it doesn't have to be a huge disaster,
right?
But if you're without electricity, like we were in the derecho for 5 days, what are you going to do? Right. Luckily, we could get gas in our cars. And we could keep our cars outside the garage because there was no electricity to open the garage door. But all those kinds of things. But it took that hurricane hitting 2 miles from my house that I watched on TV, floating across Delaware County, and saw how close it was.
Right. And it's a wake-up call.
It is.
Right?
It really is. It really is. And, I always think I'm going to be fairly level-headed in an emergency. So far, not too bad. But it was watching that news coverage that sort of threw me. I have everything in place. I got it all packed in my basement. I have to remember in a couple of years to update stuff because it's going to be real stale by then. What I've really focused on things like hurricane or tornadoes and loss of electricity. What's different if my house burns down, my kit's gone. What is different? What do I need to do differently for a fire, for floods? There are other disasters that we need to be prepared for.
So basically, I think you start basic and you start for really anything that could disrupt your daily life. So most disasters, of course, are a little different in maybe how you're warned about them or how quickly they that there is a warning. The river's gauge rising for a couple weeks and then cresting is a lot different than tornado in the middle of the night, right? Mm-hmm. But your needs for sustaining life and kind of that normalcy are the same nearly, right? The way I think about it is stay or go. Mm-hmm. Are you going to have to leave your place of residence, or are you going to have to stay? Right. There are times where it's a shelter-in-place model. You do not leave, right? And then there are other times where you must evacuate, right? And then there's all kinds of those other phases in between. And so when you think about a preparedness kit, try to make it mobile. Or try
exactly.
Right?
That's what I loved about what the Red Cross had. They, you have a lot of different preparedness kits, but it dawned on me I need to have one that I can use there or take with me pretty easily. Yeah. And it's just me, so it has to be something I can carry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know people that may keep a smaller kit in their car or a larger kit at home, those kind of things, so they at least are covered if they do get that evacuation order and have to leave immediately. But think a little deeper. Are you on any medications that you might not be able to go and grab out of your medicine cabinet up on the second floor when you have a couple minutes to leave? Do you have important documents that are laminated and waterproof and in your kit ready to go? I think a lot of people don't think about their pets as far as what's in their emergency kit and the needs of their pets. So when I talked about 1 gallon per person per day of water, it's also that includes your pets. Same with food. Same with comfort items. I was in the basement for about 30 minutes a couple weeks ago after the last kind of spread of storms, and with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and my wife and my dog, and we were all sitting in this basement, kind of twiddling our thumbs, looking at each other, and we didn't have any comfort items for the kids. That was something. I've been doing this for 13 years, and I hadn't thought of that. I've only had kids for 5, right? But that was one of those things where I can add to my kit after having that experience. So crayons and coloring books, a couple stuffies, things that the kids could play with while me and mom were watching the news.
Right.
And battening down the hatches and, those kind of things.
I have a deck of playing cards.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a plane ticket.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No, because on one of the lists, I was looking through many of them, but one of the lists said comfort things. Yeah. And it was really talking about items for the kids. But one of the things it suggested was a deck of playing cards. And I go, well, I got lots of those. So I threw one of those in.
Sure.
So who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Well, again, if you're sheltered in place for several days, power's off, you're going to need to keep
play
busy.
Solitaire on your phone, but you can play solitaire with cards.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, one major utility we're going to lose in a disaster is communications. I was thinking about this too. Is like we get away, and not that landlines survive disasters, but they probably more than likely would than cell phone. It just, my point being, we're getting away from landline. That was one, when we finally cut the cord on landline, that was one thing in my mind going, what if? What if? It's like, no, not because the phone company almost forces your hand to want to cut it because they make it so expensive anymore comparatively. Again, that's off topic, but it's that you're going to lose it. We're not going to have those communications. So we need not only know our loved ones are okay, but we need to hear from local government on their plans for cleanup. If it's, hopefully a broadcast will have it, or action in case of evacuation, or when to expect the electricity to come back on. what do you suggest we do, and how do we prepare, not only if we are in an emergency, but also if a loved one is in a disaster, but we're not in the same location? And we now are much more mobile, so your spouse could be in a different location at that point in time, or the kids are a different place. How do we navigate that?
Right. Yeah, very good. So we talked about getting a kit, right? That's kind of the number one thing. I think that the preparedness kit really gets you, again, in that mindset of what you will need if X were to occur. And again, there's plenty of lists. There's plenty of things to think about. You can always add to it, et cetera. The next step would be making a plan. And that is, what if I'm separated from my family at work and something happens? What do we do? The cell phone towers are down. It's hard to, maybe get out of the city or those kind of things. What do we do? Where do we go? And that starts with a conversation at home, well before the disaster. And it really is, might be a little scary to talk about, but we have to talk about it. So make the plan of, okay, if we are separated and a disaster occurs, where's our meeting place a little bit away, right? Where are those 2 or 3 meeting places in the 20-mile radius, 50-mile radius, where we know that you're going to be if I can't reach you? And it's grandma and grandpa's house, right? And it's a little out of the way. You could imagine most of the disasters that we would see here in Central Ohio, maybe not hitting both places at the same time, right? So that is our space. So making that plan about where we would go and what we would do if we were separated, I think, is very important. Knowing your kids' schools' emergency plans, knowing your work's plans. A lot of these entities have their own plans about how they contact you, or where they may go if they need to shelter, all of those kind of things. A lot of that is already written. And
if it's not, you asking them about it could help them do that.
Absolutely,
Sure.
absolutely,
Sure.
right? So those pieces I think are very important. And then, so we talked, get a kit, make a plan, and then be informed. You talked about communication lines down. I know a lot of folks that get their news from their phone, right? The phone isn't as waterproof as they say it is, or the battery might die. Communication cell towers are down. That thing, isn't as useful as it could be, right? So how else do you get information? So is it a weather radio? How else do your local emergency managers, your sheriff's departments, your fire departments, how else do they share information when something's happening? I know a lot of folks use social media, but then there are other ways. There are other ways of getting some of that information.
I have a crank radio now.
Right.
We've had one for a long time.
In my kit.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to see my kit can come on over to my house and see my kit.
They're pretty cool. It didn't take a whole lot of cranking, and it's on for a bit. They're pretty neat. Yeah, they are.
So it's not ideal, right? But it's the best thing that you can come up with in that time. I think is really, really very important.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I have really learned in doing the podcast, it doesn't matter the topic, financial planning, whatever it is we're talking about. The key issue is to prepare yourself,
right?
And don't wait for the disaster day to hit and then try to backtrack and do it, because you're not going to be as successful.
Right. Well, and you said it before is that emergency will occur, and you'd like to think that you would remain calm, but you'd never been through it before.
Right.
You don't know how you're going to react.
And if you have thought about it and prepared, You may still be a little crazy through the process, but you're going to feel a lot better knowing that you at least have some semblance of what you need, the materials you need, and a plan.
Right. Yeah. You can save your time. You save yourself some time running around your house trying to get clothes together or get your medications or get other things that you might need. If that's all there, then you could save that time by making some calls to family or friends or helping out a neighbor. I mean, the more prepared you are, the more prepared your community can be.
Mm-hmm. So at the same time that this was all hitting me with the tornado coming through my neighborhood, I also am a member of the advisory council for the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging. And really since the pandemic, this whole emergency preparedness for older adults has become a huge issue. So it just by chance happened that I was at a meeting there. And I missed your presentation, but they got me in contact with you so that we could really talk about this. The Red Cross does a lot of different stuff. It's not just the emergency preparedness. We talked about the local blood drives and working with veterans, but a little bit more about the seniors. You do smoke detectors for seniors, and there are some other services that your team provides.
Absolutely. So we do install free smoke alarms, and we'll do like a home fire safety check, actually. So you can give us a call. We'll get the number to you. Give us a call. You make an appointment. We have volunteers that will make an appointment with you. Come on out to your residence. We will check what smoke alarms you already have in your home, test them, see if they're appropriate. If they're not, we will replace them with brand new smoke alarms. We'll also sit with you at the dinner table or where comfortable and talk about your fire escape plan. What do you do when those smoke alarms do go off, right? You need to have 2 modes of exit out of every room that you have. And you should have a meeting place, outside of that maybe a neighbor's house or your mailbox or that old oak tree, right? That's where everybody meets. Talking about who gets the dog and who gets the cat and are there assignments for folks?
If you have to throw a ladder out the window in the second floor.
Absolutely. Yeah. So all of those things we do, we talk about during the visit. Those things are really very important. I'll tell you, keeping an eye on what you fry is a huge point. If anybody's listening to, and looking for like really specific kind of tips, that's one I would say is don't leave your food unattended while you're cooking it. We see a lot of unattended cooking fires, and that is you're cooking and the phone will ring or the doorbell will ring and you walk away, and then that's when things get a little out of hand. So absolutely, smoke alarms and that home visit are very, very important.
So the one thing that I haven't gotten yet for my emergency pack is a fire extinguisher. Red Cross has a whole bunch of them they suggest. Does it really matter if it's a smaller one or a bigger one? I keep thinking the bigger one's going to be too heavy to carry.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, I think that's something to think about as far as the size of the extinguisher themselves, and if you can bring it up to where you need to, like the stove level kind of deal.
Especially for older adults.
I love that. I think that's a really good insight to think about that size, because you could really get a big honking one and then not be able to even reach it.
Not going to do any good.
So I would say, a very basic, smaller piece. Again, if you're watching the cooking as you're cooking, you can really hit it sooner rather than later, right? And so those small extinguishers do really great work, and they actually have more oomph in them than you would expect, right? Even those smaller ones have a lot of firefighting power.
Okay, good. Yeah. Now you've given me that seal of approval. I can even if you get 2 of them, because they're smaller. It was interesting. I was looking at the ratings on those, and there is some sort of a national rating that it has to be a certain size to become like the most approved, and they're big. And so, and it said in the descriptor, the smaller ones are fine. It's just smaller. That's why it doesn't hit that level of approval because of its size. But other than that, it's perfect.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay.
There you go. I gave you some new info.
I would say, if it works, make sure it's tested and it's in the green zone on the on the gauge. And make sure, I think that being able to lift it or practice, it could be a very important point. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we talked earlier about the CPR and the AED training and devices and such, but we didn't really talk about giving an overview and also talking about how to register and to train for those services. We talked about lightly that that's what we think about with the Red Cross and such. So if an organization or individual, maybe it's a different sign-up situation, want to go through these trainings, how do they go about doing that?
Great. So the best way to get a hold of us for taking a class, or if you need help, is to call us at 1-800-RED-CROSS. You can also sign up for a blood drive there. So 1-800-RED-CROSS is a great first kind of step to take a CPR course, to sign up for a blood drive, to find a shelter in your area if there was an emergency. That's a great first step. To sign up for a CPR, AED course, or any of our training services courses, you can also visit redcross.org/take-a-class, or again, 1-800-RED-CROSS. That would be my first advice. And if you're a local organization and you'd like to provide CPR to many people, again, give us a call there. If you're an individual looking up to sign up for a community class, that's the first step, and then we'll route you to where would be most appropriate.
I think that would just be an incredible benefit for an employer to provide their staff. Sometimes the employers might be looking to what can I do to help my folks in professional development? But this is just something because they can use it not only at work, but at home too.
Well, just think about how much time we spend at work.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And so even that, statistically, you're spending half your life at work, right? So I love knowing that when I walk into a building, I know where the AED is most of the time. But I also love knowing that folks are trained or a little bit more prepared. Walking into the Red Cross is like, okay, yeah, I'm good. I can, this is going to be okay. Whatever happens to me, I'm going to be fine.
I can walk to one with my eyes closed. I know where they are exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to be fine. Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and so the teachers go through CPR training, and now they do the AED training. But I can remember growing up, there used to be a lot of CPR training in businesses. I don't think they do that as often now, but what a great opportunity that.
Yeah, so the certifications are good for 2 years. And so some organizations, maybe larger organizations, do maybe half their staff 1 year and half their staff the second year and then continue to rotate. But again, the more people who have the training are part of that kind of emergency services network, are part of maybe they're not the ones doing compressions, but they're the ones finding the AED, or maybe they're not the ones doing those two things, but they're the ones calling 911. And so you have this kind of teamwork-based life-saving model that I think is really crucial, really important.
Is there a cost to individuals or employers or organizations?
There is. There's a sliding scale of different costs. There are many different ways to take these classes. So there are hybrid models where you could take some of the classroom instruction actually online, learn first aid, learn the tenets of CPR, first aid, AED, and then you would go to a location and do pretty much a test out, a couple hours worth of test out. Okay, you're doing the compressions correctly at the right depth, at the right rate. Great, so we'll sign you off. There's other kind of all-day, full-fledged classes. There are different classes for different sectors. So whether you're Yeah, absolutely. So there is a cost involved to most of the classes. We do offer classes for free, depending on the time of the year. The Red Cross also offers a hands-only CPR class for free. So if you're part of an organization that may not be able to afford the full class or has a small group of folks that just want to have the basics, I'll come to your organization and teach you how to do hands-only CPR, which is just compressions, for free in about a half an hour.
So it used to be Staying Alive, the song Staying Alive that you sang while you were doing the compressions. I heard it was changed.
Well, that's, Staying Alive
saying?
hasn't changed in their beats per minute. So it's still,
There you go.
It's still a good one. It's still what most people mention when we take the class. I'll tell you one because I have kids. I will torture you with this. Baby Shark is also at like 110.
Okay.
I think it's right at that, anything between 100 and 120 beats per minute.
Okay.
And so, yeah, Baby Shark is one, and you're welcome. But there are
I don't
plenty
mind
of,
singing Staying Alive all night long, but Baby Shark, no.
There are a lot of songs like that. And so I typically, when I teach class, I have like a playlist of songs that are within that range.
Depending on the audience.
Depending on the audience.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go. So cool.
I'm sure one of your favorite songs are 110 beats per minute.
I'm sure.
Probably.
Well, I don't mind. I don't mind Staying Alive. That one's okay. Cory, we have already talked a little bit about the older adults and how they need these services. And as I mentioned, COAAA, the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging, and the Age Friendly Initiative have really been active in emergency preparedness for older adults. Give us a little bit more about that relationship.
Well, I said it at the top of the podcast that no one agency can do it alone. And so the partnerships, the kind of relationships that we've been able to foster with COAAA and Age Friendly and many others have been invaluable for us to have a platform to talk about these things, right? Just much like this podcast, but it gives us that forum to reach people who are typically more affected by disasters, more affected by heat, more affected by cold weather, more affected by power outages than a typical community, right?
Right.
And so being able to look through the preparedness lens, being able to also look back at past incidents where folks were uncomfortable or folks were hurt or injured, where people passed away because of heat-related or other disasters, gives us the data, gives us the information on how best to move forward. And I would say that COAAA and Age Friendly are leaders in this space, as far as research, as far as data, as far as best next steps, as far as like really worldwide best practices in the Age Friendly space.
We really have to give a shout out to Katie and her team and Marisa and her team because they have done a phenomenal job on a lot of issues about older adults that people hadn't really thought of in the past.
Absolutely. I learn something new from them every time I meet with them. Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. Do you partner with other organizations that support disaster relief and emergency preparedness? I mean, we touched on a few, but maybe you want to give a shout out to a lot of others.
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I don't want to leave anybody out, so I would say that again, we work really very closely with our emergency management agencies. Our fire department partners are amazing, and then you have grassroots nonprofits, very small community-based food banks. You have very large disaster response organizations that mobilize hundreds and hundreds of people and everything in between. And the importance of having those relationships with the small, again, grassroots teams and having relationships with those large folks you just never know what the next disaster is going to be. You never know what the next issue. It could be the multi-year pandemic, or it could be that single-family house fire. And so we provide referrals to a lot of organizations after the fact that end up helping with the recovery. There are organizations that'll muck out your basement and cut down trees. And again, I'm going through the names of these folks, but I don't want to leave anybody out. So I would say the list will never be complete.
Right.
Right. And the goal is really to meet whomever is in need of service, whether that's something the Red Cross can provide or whether that's a community partner. Making it easier for that person to recover is all of our responsibilities.
Well, and I think this is a really good opportunity, too, that if by chance somebody's listening to this podcast and says, oh, well, you know what, we could play a role in this, you're the person for them to call.
Please, yeah. Cory.Paul@redcross.org. My phone number is 440-320-3479. Give me a call. Let me know what you're looking for. Let me know how you can help, how we can help you. And whether I'll be the point person or someone on our team, we have really wonderful staff. We have really wonderful volunteers that do this kind of work on a daily basis.
And listeners, don't forget, we always have resources listed in our show notes on our website. So we'll have all of this information, and we'll have more than enough ways for you to get a hold of Cory and his team. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Our podcasts always really go fast, and we cover a lot of information in a short amount of time. So thank you for your time and your expertise. I think, if nothing else, we've not only given our audience some bits and pieces of information, some nudges to be prepared ahead of time, and any other words of wisdom you want to make sure that our folks have heard from you today.
Well, I'll tell you, we are always looking for volunteers. And so I think many listeners today and always may have a little extra time on their hands, or may be compelled to serve in the humanitarian mission. Well, again, whether it's with the Red Cross or many other organizations that do this kind of work. But we would love to have you. And that's the power of our organizations. It's 90% of our workforce are volunteers. Mm-hmm. And I have the gift. It's an honor to be able to work with volunteers on a daily basis. They're motivating. Mm-hmm. They do not have to be here, and they choose to be, right?
Mm-hmm. At someone's worst moment.
Someone's worst moment. Yeah. And they take on so much, right? Mm-hmm. To do that day in and day out, or even to do that once or twice a month, to absorb some of that is a humanitarian feat in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to create space for that, to recognize our volunteers, both now who are on our roster today, who are responding to disasters locally and nationally, taking time and being there. And so if you're interested in volunteering, redcross.org/volunteer. Again, give me a call. I'm happy to talk you through it, what the expectations are, but there are many, many ways, from, again, rolling to that house fire or that large disaster, to answering the phone and to dispatching those teams and to maybe doing follow-up calls with those clients who had experienced disasters. There's many, many ways to get involved.
We have an incredibly generous population here in Central Ohio. Absolutely. Many people volunteer for many things. For those of you who have not necessarily experienced a volunteer opportunity, there's nothing like it. And it's so fulfilling. So we hope that this brings maybe some new folks to you.
Wonderful. Yeah. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, many thanks to our expert guest, Cory Paul, Executive Director of the Greater Columbus Chapter of the American Red Cross. Thanks for joining us today. Listeners, thank you for joining us. You'll find the contact information and resources that we talked about in this episode in the podcast show notes and on our website at lookingforwardourway.com. And we are looking forward to hearing your feedback on this or any of our other podcast episodes.